Deep in the dark, humid heart of the Everglades, a strange silence has fallen over the river of grass. There are no birds singing, no frogs croaking, just the cold, dead gaze of an invisible ghost waiting beneath the water. For 40 years, the Burmese python has reigned here as an absolute, unchallenged apex predator. It is a terrifying masterpiece of biology, capable of swelling its own heart by 40% just to digest a deer whole. Humans tried to fight back. We spent millions of dollars and sent armies of hunters into the mud, but we lost. The swamp simply swallowed our efforts. But then, inside a lonely research outpost, Dr. Thomas Hayes stared at a thermal monitor and discovered the impossible. The pythons were vanishing from areas humans have never even reached. Before we reveal the secret force that stepped in to wage this war, hit subscribe to follow this journey into the wild. Because right when we gave up, a silent, ancient power woke up to take back its home. To understand how we got here, we have to look back at what this place used to be. Old-timers will tell you about an Everglades that was practically bursting with life. Not too long ago, if you walked along these muddy banks, you would hear the constant, lively chatter of the swamp. You would see families of raccoons washing their food in the shallows, opossums hanging from the branches, and marsh rabbits darting through the high grass. It was a chaotic, beautiful symphony of survival. But if you visit those same spots today, the silence is deafening. The music has stopped. The playful rustle in the bushes is gone, replaced only by the dry, hollow whistle of the wind blowing through dead cypress trees. This is not the peaceful quiet of a healthy forest. It is the eerie, heavy silence of a graveyard. The cold, hard data behind this sudden emptiness is nothing short of a biological massacre. Ecological surveys of the park paint a devastating picture. 99% of the raccoon population has been completely wiped out. 98% of the opossums are gone. And the marsh rabbits, once so abundant they practically carpeted the damp ground, have been entirely erased from the landscape. They did not just decline. They were systematically hunted into near extinction by an invader they never evolved to fear. When you look at the math of how these giant snakes reproduce, you quickly realize why our human efforts to stop them were doomed from the start. A single female Burmese python can lay up to 100 eggs in a single nesting season. Combined with a lifespan of over 20 years and a complete lack of natural predators during their initial invasion, the exponential growth is staggering. A single original breeding pair can spark a lineage of tens of thousands of pythons over their lifetime. Against those numbers, every bounty hunter, every high-tech trap, and every dollar we spent was just a drop in an ocean of scale. We were bringing shovels to a landslide. Before we dive deeper into the incredible ways the swamp is finally fighting back against this overwhelming crisis, I want to pause and ask you, where are you watching this video from? Please tell us your country or city in the comments and let's explore together. This ecological collapse is not just about losing a few furry animals. In nature, everything is connected by invisible threads, and when you pull on one, the entire tapestry begins to unravel. This is the butterfly effect in its most brutal form. Without small mammals like raccoons and opossums to eat native fruits and disperse the seeds through their droppings, the vital mangrove forests are failing to regenerate. These forests are the ancient kidneys of Florida. They filter the water, trap sediment, and protect the lowlands from major storms. By destroying the animals, the pythons have indirectly crippled the natural filtration system of the entire region. This threatens the very drinking water supply for over 9 million people living in South Florida. It is a stark reminder that we are not separate from this ecosystem. What happens in the deepest, darkest corner of the swamp eventually flows right to our kitchen sinks. Every single species that vanishes from this wetland is like a note torn out of a grand, ancient song. When those notes are silenced one by one, the song of the land dies. The heavy quiet hanging over the Everglades today is not a sign of peace. It is the mute, desperate cry of a world that is slowly choking to death on its own imbalance, waiting for a savior that may never come from the human world. Just when it seemed like the Burmese python had completely broken the Everglades, a bizarre mystery began to unfold in the deepest parts of the swamp. Field biologists doing routine surveys started finding the bodies of massive pythons, some over 12 feet long, rotting in the sawgrass. But these snakes had not been shot by human hunters, and they had not been run over by trucks. Instead, their heads were completely pulverized, destroyed by a single, clean, incredibly precise bite. There were no signs of a long, thrashing struggle in the dirt, no flattened vegetation to suggest a massive battle. There were only quiet, shallow paw prints left behind in the dark, wet mud. For a long time, researchers were baffled. What kind of creature could look at a modern biological superweapon and decide it was on the menu? The suspect they finally caught on trail cameras was the last animal anyone expected. It was the coyote. Now, if you know anything about coyotes, you know they are not giants. A typical wild coyote in the American South only weighs about 25 to 30 pounds. That is barely a third of the weight of a mature python. In a straight, brute force wrestling match, a python would wrap a coyote up and crush it to death in seconds. But coyotes do not play by those rules. They are highly intelligent, incredibly observant, and they realized very quickly that this giant, terrifying invader actually has 3 fatal biological flaws. The coyotes became wildlife detectives, learning to wait patiently and exploit these exact blind spots with terrifying efficiency. The first vulnerability they exploit is what we might call the ultimate food coma. When a python swallows a massive meal, like a deer or a large bird, its entire body undergoes a massive metabolic shift. To digest something that big, almost all of the oxygen-rich blood in the snake's body is diverted away from its muscles and pumped directly to its stomach. This leaves the python in a state of temporary paralysis. It becomes sluggish, heavy, and physically incapable of striking or constricting with any real force. To a clever coyote patrolling the banks, a digesting python is not a threat. It is just a giant, helpless sleeping bag full of protein. The second blind spot occurs when the python goes through its shedding cycle. Before a snake sheds its skin, it enters a phase where its eyes turn a cloudy, milky blue. This happens because a specialized protective scale called a spectacle, which covers the eye, begins to separate from the new skin beneath it. During these few days, the python is functionally blind. It cannot see a predator approaching, relying instead on heat-sensing pits and ground vibrations. But a coyote is light on its feet, stepping so softly through the grass that the blind snake never even hears death coming. The third and perhaps most tragic blind spot happens during the nesting season. Female pythons are dedicated mothers. They coil themselves tightly around their clutch of up to 100 eggs to keep them warm and protect them from predators. Because they cannot regulate their own body temperature, these mothers must constantly shiver, contracting their muscles rapidly to generate heat for the nest. This process takes every ounce of energy they have. It leaves the mother exhausted, weak, and completely focused on the ground beneath her. Because she is coiled so tightly, she loses all ability to defend against a high-angle threat approaching directly from behind. The coyote understands all of this perfectly. When it finds a python in one of these vulnerable states, it does not rush in blindly. It circles quietly, staying completely out of the snake's limited field of view. Once it finds the perfect angle, the coyote strikes like a sniper. It does not waste time biting the thick, muscular body. Instead, it delivers a single, crushing bite directly to the back of the neck, right where the skull connects to the spinal cord. This surgical strike instantly severs the python's central nervous system. The giant predator is paralyzed in a fraction of a second, unable to coil, fight back, or even register what hit it. It is a stunning display of intellect over raw power, proof that the resident animals of this ancient swamp are not just victims anymore. They are studying their enemy, adapting in real time, and rewriting the rules of engagement. If you thought the coyotes were the only ones stepping up to defend this land, think again. What started as a few isolated incidents of rebellion has exploded into a full-scale, coordinated counteroffensive by the native species of the Everglades. The prey is no longer acting like prey. Instead, they are forming a silent, deadly alliance of survivors, and they are turning the tables in ways that will completely rewrite the history of this wetland. Let us start with one of the most surprising and frankly terrifying tactical squads in the swamp: the river otters. Individually, these animals look playful and harmless, but when they band together in a family group of 4 to 12, they transform into a highly coordinated SEAL team. They do not run away from pythons anymore. When a family of otters spots a python swimming through their territory, they initiate a ruthless tactic known as the death vortex. They swim in tight, overlapping circles around the snake, taking turns darting in to rip and bite from every possible angle. The python thrashes wildly, trying to land a bite or wrap its heavy coils around its agile attackers, but the otters are simply too fast, too slick, and they work in perfect shifts. Once the python is completely exhausted and gasping for air, the otters drag the giant reptile beneath the surface, holding it underwater until it drowns. And their wrath does not stop with the adults. If these otters find a python nest, their sharp teeth can tear through a clutch of 100 leathery eggs in less than 10 minutes, wiping out an entire generation before they even have a chance to hatch. Then we have the survivors of the great mammal collapse. Remember how 99% of the raccoon population was wiped out? Well, the remaining 1% represent the absolute intellectual elite of their species. These survivors have passed down a hyper-vigilant gene to their offspring, creating a new generation of super smart raccoons that know exactly how to play the game. They have spent years studying the habits of the giant snakes, and they discovered a crucial flaw in the python mother's routine. To keep her body temperature high enough to incubate her eggs, the python mother has to leave her dark nest every single day around noon. She crawls out into the bright sunlight for just 15 to 20 minutes to absorb the midday heat. The raccoons watch and wait for this exact window. The moment she slides away, the raccoons slip into the burrow. Working with frantic, surgical speed, they dig up the nest and feast on the eggs, leaving nothing but empty shells by the time the mother snake returns from her sunbath. It is a sweet, calculated revenge. Hearing how these animals are fighting back is absolutely incredible, isn't it? Which of these native species do you think is the ultimate defender of the Everglades? Tell us in the comments below, because we love reading your thoughts. As the battle lines are redrawn, even the ancient rulers of the swamp are reclaiming their throne. For years, we saw shocking videos of pythons swallowing alligators whole, but those days are coming to an end. The American alligator has adapted. They are no longer caught off guard. Alligators have started setting up perfect ambushes at tight choke points, those narrow, muddy channels that the giant snakes must use to travel between deep-water basins. The alligator submerges completely, leaving only its nostrils above the surface, waiting like a silent submarine. When the python swims past, the alligator strikes with a bite force of 2,000 pounds per square inch. That is enough sheer pressure to instantly snap the python's ribs and crush its skull, ending the fight before it even begins. High up on the dry ridges, the undisputed king of the land has also joined the fray. The Florida panther is a ghost of the forest, and now it is a python's worst nightmare. The panther has figured out a brilliant mechanical solution to the python's deadly squeeze. When a panther attacks, it uses its razor-sharp claws to pin the snake's head firmly to the ground, completely neutralizing the reptile's ability to coil and constrict. With the head locked in place, the panther uses its incredibly powerful jaw to deliver a single, crushing bite that snaps the snake's neck vertebrae. And finally, patrolling the undergrowth is the eastern indigo snake. This beautiful blue-black native serpent is completely non-venomous, but it is immune to many toxins and highly possessive of its territory. Indigo snakes are aggressive hunters, and they have started actively seeking out python hatchlings. The moment a baby python crawls out of its shell, the indigo snake is there to hunt it down and swallow it whole. What we are witnessing is not just random violence, it is a biological uprising. The Native Alliance has risen, and they are sending a clear message to the invader. This swamp belongs to us. To understand how this rapid, widespread resistance is even possible, we have to look at one of the most fascinating phenomena in modern biology. For a long time, science assumed that animals could only adapt to new threats through the slow, grueling process of genetic evolution, a process that takes millions of years. But the Everglades does not have millions of years, and the creatures living here knew it. What we are witnessing today is a profound demonstration of what scientists call cultural transmission. In the wild, cultural transmission is the rapid spread of a new behavior through a population, not through DNA, but through observation, imitation, and learning. It is essentially animals teaching other animals how to solve a problem in real time. We have seen this kind of collective genius happen before on a global scale. Take a look at Australia, where the introduction of the highly toxic cane toad threatened to wipe out native predators. Within just a few generations, clever crows figured out a brilliant workaround. They learned to flip the toxic toads onto their backs, avoiding the lethal poison glands on their shoulders, and eat only the safe, meaty parts of the underbelly and thighs. This trick spread across the entire crow population like wildfire. Or think back to early 20th century England, where blue-tit birds suddenly learned how to pierce the foil tops of milk bottles left on doorsteps to steal the rich cream floated on top. Within a few short years, birds across the entire country were doing the exact same thing. They did not wait for their genes to change. They saw, they learned, and they adapted. This is exactly how the Everglades is rewriting its own survival code. The animals of this swamp are not waiting for evolution to catch up. A young coyote watches an older one strike a sleeping python in its blind spot, and suddenly a new hunter is born. A family of young otters observes their parents executing the death vortex, and the tactic is passed down to the next generation. The native wildlife is actively reprogramming the food web from within, systematically patching a system error to eliminate an unwanted invader. It is as if Mother Nature herself is updating her software to quarantine a destructive virus. But as the swamp wages its quiet war, humans have also stepped up, finally learning to work with the ecosystem rather than against it. We have traded our brute force and heavy guns for sophisticated silent technology that turns the invader's own biology against them. Our most brilliant weapon in this high-tech hunt is a covert operation known as the Judas python tactic. Field biologists capture a massive, mature male python, perform a delicate surgery to implant a tiny GPS tracking chip inside its body, and release it back into the wild. Because pythons are solitary creatures, finding them in millions of acres of dense swamp is nearly impossible for humans. But during the breeding season, the male's biology takes over. Driven by an unstoppable instinct, this Judas snake will navigate through miles of pitch-black swamp, leading researchers directly to massive breeding balls hidden deep in the sawgrass. A single Judas snake can unwittingly betray dozens of breeding females, allowing biologists to remove them and their potential offspring before they can ever do harm. To make this tactic even more devastating, we are now pairing these biological double agents with cutting-edge technology. Under the cover of night, high-tech drones sweep silently over the canopy. Equipped with highly sensitive thermal imaging cameras and powered by advanced artificial intelligence, these drones can detect the tiny, subtle heat signatures of cold-blooded snakes warming themselves against the cool, dark ground of the swamp. The AI can instantly distinguish the thermal profile of a python from a native alligator or a pile of decaying vegetation. It is a perfect marriage of biological instinct and human technology, proving that when we stop trying to conquer nature and instead learn to understand it, we can finally help the land find its way back to balance. We spent decades thinking we could force our will upon the wild, but the Everglades reminded us of a simple, beautiful truth. Life does not need us to save it, it just needs us to step back and respect it. This swamp bled for 40 years, but it chose to heal itself, proving that nature is incredibly forgiving, yet fiercely protective of its balance. Maybe the greatest lesson of all is humility. What does this story of survival mean to you? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below, and please subscribe to join us. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.